Welcome to the Baseball Neighborhood, a Dodgers podcast about the other 29 teams in Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Tavi. Each week, we talk about a different franchise, looking at them through the lens of the Dodgers. For our first episode, we will talk about the Mets. And despite it being our first episode, we actually decided to split this interview into two different segments. These women were so smart and so funny that I couldn't let any of it hit the cutting room floor. So, this first episode is focused a little more on the past and Trevor Bauer. And the follow-up segment, which will be out Wednesday, is more about the current team. So, without further ado, let's learn a little bit about the Mets. After the Dodgers and the Giants relocated to California in 1959, the American League Yankees were the only major league team in New York. In 1959, William Shea, a New York lawyer who could, quote, get things done, unquote, he started campaigning for a third major league. That's right, an entire new league called the Continental League. 5 cities were proposed, with an additional 3 teams to be added later. Former Dodger president Branch Rickey was named the president of that league, and they announced an opening day of April 18th, 1961. Now, this story is complicated. There's backroom levers being pulled and more than a few closed-door discussions, but what basically happened is that the American League and the National League moved some teams around and announced several expansion teams. William Shea was happy there was another team in New York City, and so American League and National League owners got what they wanted. The Continental League disbanded in August of 1960 without ever having played a single game. It did serve a purpose, though. 7 of those proposed locations, Denver, Houston, Minneapolis, St. Paul, New York, Toronto, Atlanta, and Dallas-Fort Worth, they might seem kind of familiar because they all ended up with either new or relocated American or National League teams within the next 2 decades. Except for Denver. They had to wait for the Rockies until 1991. Anyway, the Mets are in New York now, and they named their new stadium Shea Stadium in honor of William Shea. It was the home of the Mets for 45 years. It also hosted the New York Jets football team from 64 to 83. Shea Stadium was demolished in 2009 to make parking lots for the newly opened Citi Field. You probably already know this, but the Mets chose their team colors to honor the 2 teams that moved west, Giants Orange and Dodger Blue. As of this taping, in the regular season, the Mets and the Dodgers have faced off a total of 619 times. The Dodgers are currently on top record-wise with 346 wins, 272 losses, and 1 tie. Because you used to be able to tie in the 60s, so they did that. In the postseason, they've met twice in the NLDS in 2006 and 2015, with the Dodgers losing both of those series. Oops. They have only met once in the NLCS, in 1988. And I think most Dodger fans know what happened in 1998, as if the year wasn't burned into our skulls for good and bad reasons, to be fair. There's been a few kerfuffles, I guess you'd call it, between the Dodgers and the Mets. The most recent being, Chase Utley as a whole, like his whole entire person. But you have to understand, Utley was already a Mets not-so-favorite for his time that he spent with the Phillies before he even came to the Dodgers. And then, in the 2015 NLDS, Utley took a hard slide into Ruben Tejada at second, and it fractured his leg. Utley was suspended for 2 games, but he won his appeal and the suspension was lifted. But the Mets did win the NLDS in 5. Of course, when Utley returned to Citi Field the next season, the fans were kind of understandably out for blood. They were even chanting, "We want Utley, we want Utley." Noah Syndergaard had started that 2015 NLDS game and had been chased out of said game by the Utley hit that put Chase on first right before that fateful slide. So, in that first 2016 game, Noah Syndergaard was on the mound and he threw behind Chase Utley. Of course, home plate umpire Jim Wolf immediately threw Syndergaard from the game because umpires actually do pay attention to the politics and dynamics between the teams. Trust me, umpires know all of the hot gossip. Anyway, Syndergaard and Mets manager Terry Collins got rolled from the game. Utley responded with a homer in the 6th, breaking up the shutout, followed by a grand slam in the 7th. 4 other Dodgers would homer that night, and the Dodgers would win the game 9-1. Unfortunately for Tejada, that accident was the beginning of a rougher stretch of baseball for him. After spending 9 years with the organization who drafted him, the Mets released him after that season, after he cleared waivers. He bounced around to a few teams, battling other injuries and stints in the minors before ending up in Toronto for the 2020 season, but the Jays released him in August of last year. Funnily enough, Tejada's move to the majors in 2011 was kind of the reason the Mets moved Justin Turner to third base, and we all know how well Justin at the hot corner has worked out for us Dodgers. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're a Dodgers fan and you ever run into Ruben Tejada, buy the man a drink. Or 2, he kind of deserves it. Aside from Turner, there's been a handful of other notable trades between the Mets and the Dodgers. Hideo Nomo was actually a Met after his first stint with the Dodgers. And Mike Piazza ended up being dealt to the Marlins from the Dodgers, but he really only stayed there a week, and then he was sent to the Mets. But that Marlins-Dodgers trade actually saw another former Met come from the Marlins to the Dodgers, and that was for the 1998 season. We had, for part of it, the most infamous Met, probably, which is Bobby Bonilla. Ah, yes. You cannot talk about 90s Mets without bringing up Bobby Bonilla Day. See, that is a complicated story that involves the former owners, the Wilpons, and Ponzi schemes, and Bernie Madoff, and just like a really bad deal for the Mets. But what it shakes down to is that because the Mets still owed Bobby $5.9 million when they released him, they cut a deal to defer his payment for 10 years, thinking that this Ponzi scheme they were involved in was going to cover it. We all know how Bernie Madoff turned out. So anyway, once a year, on July 1st, the Mets pay Bobby just over $1 million for a season he didn't even play with the Mets. They have done this since 2011, and they will continue to do so until 2035. This will add up to just under $30 million for a season that he never played with the Mets. So all I got to say about that is good job, Bobby. Enjoy your money. Anyway, there's decades of history that I am leaving out for the sake of time. And while I wouldn't really consider the Mets a traditional, quote, rivalry, unquote, both teams are in the National League, so that assures there's going to be a healthy competition from time to time. Because of the COVID season, these two teams haven't faced off since September of 2019. It was a 3-game series at Citi Field, which the Dodgers took 2-1. This season, the Mets and the Dodgers won't see each other until mid-August. They'll meet first at Citi Field for a 3-game series. Then the Dodgers will come back home to host the Pirates, and the very next home series will be the Mets once more. They won't meet again this year unless it's for a playoff game. So, now you know a little bit about the Mets and the Dodgers. Now it's time to meet some Mets fans.
All right, I would like to introduce you to a pod of their own, also known as Allison.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
And Linda.
Hello. Pleasure to be here.
And Kellyanne.
Hello. I'm very excited to be joining you guys tonight.
So they are baseball fans who know, more than just a thing or two about the Mets. They're pretty on it. If you haven't heard them before. So I guess the first question is, how does it feel to be a Mets fan right now?
Good. So here's the thing. It's like, it's hard to like, it's been a very roller coaster of an off season for the Mets because it feels on the field, it feels amazing because we have a new ownership group that's richer than God. And so it's finally like, all right. And literally Steve Cohen said he wants to emulate the Dodgers. And so when you come out swinging like that, saying, I want to emulate the Dodgers, I want to win a World Series in the next 3 to 5 years, like that gets fans really excited. And like from a baseball perspective, despite like missing out on most of the like major free agents, the Mets still had a very good offseason as far as the Lindor Carrasco trade and, you know, the signings they made. So it's like a really exciting time to be a Mets fan because it's kind of the start of a new era. But then like it's all marred by like a sexual harassment scandal coming out about the Mets every single day, like during the whole offseason. So it's been like kind of a weird, like we're very excited about the team that we're fielding this year. And it's going to be the start of a new era, but also like, you know, these baseball wide problems aren't going away and the Mets have kind of become a microcosm of that. So it's been a mixed bag, I guess.
Yeah. It's like kind of having whiplash from like the previous ownership group, who also loved the Dodgers and tried to emulate them. They were just really, really bad at it. They didn't have the money to do it. And now we have a new owner who wants to also emulate the Dodgers, but has the money to do it. So yeah, it's just like like every day it's like you're really high, then you're really low. Like, oh yes, we got Lindor, but oh no, now like you have to fire your GM. And so it was just like this frenetic off season where like I just want normalcy. And now with spring training, it's like, can we just be normal for like 5 minutes and just enjoy the ride? And I think that's where I'm at right now.
I mean, I'm excited and wary. Basically, like Allison and Linda said, there's so much to look forward to on the field, especially like our players are very online this season. They're really funny. But again, it's kind of been marred by Jared Porter being fired and Ryan Ellis, who was a hitting coordinator, who was just let go. And actually, something that I'm just personally like eyeballing is Louis Rojas's second season, just because he's coming into this season an abnormal season again. He has not had a regular season. He's still a pretty green manager, excuse me. So that's something to keep your eye on. I'm keeping my eye on it.
Yeah, and it's not like 2020 was a fair gauge for like anything. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Like, so yeah, when Steve Cohen came on, it seemed like there was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of you know, oh, it's gonna get happening. But then like, you know, Jared Porter and like GameStop happened. Like the GameStop, like what in the world? How do Mets feel about Cohen now? Like, are they still excited? I'm still so excited because he's still very rich. Like, let's not pretend like he suffered hardly at all for that. But like, what's going through your head about him right now?
Like he's already made back the money he's lost essentially. So I'm kind of, I'm not super concerned about it. Really the only like, I mean, obviously we'll never know behind the scenes the impact that the GameStop thing had on him. Really the only like public facing impact as far as the fans are concerned that we have seen that's had on him is that he left Twitter. Because he, in addition to our very online players, our owner was very online pretty briefly. And that was kind of, I mean, like, we joke about it, but it was a refreshing change because it was another huge departure from the previous ownership group, because the previous ownership group, I'm not asking every ownership guy to have a Twitter. Like the owner does not need to tweet. Like, I'm not saying that he needs to have a Twitter by any stretch of the imagination, but Fred and Jeff Wilpon were very, like, they would have one press conference every couple of years. And if you saw their face, it was like a miracle. Like they were never accountable to the fans. They never made an effort to like interact with the fan base in any way, not just for accountability reasons, but even just like, you know, like lighthearted interaction, like at charity events and things like that.
I mean, I followed him.
Present.
Yeah, like I followed him.
And so
it sounded like fun. Yeah.
It was fun for a few weeks where he was on Twitter and like interacting with the fans, occasionally dunking on someone, being like, you know, random guy online, why don't you run the team for a little while? Like it was funny. Like he was very good at like interacting with the fan base, and he did a random, like there was an event at Citi Field for season ticket holders and he showed up as a surprise. Like no one thought he would be there. He showed up in person, greeted them. Like it was very much a refreshing change. And so GameStop kind of like made him step back. I mean, understandably so. I'm not blaming him for it because he was getting threats, and that's serious. So threats to his family, very serious stuff. So like, obviously step away, log off for a little while, totally fine. But like from a public facing perspective, that's really the biggest impact it's had. As far as financials, like, hard to say if he like didn't sign that extra reliever because of GameStop. I don't think so, but one can never know, I suppose.
We kind of speculated that this is like normal for like hedge fund people, and like that they can just lose that amount of money in like a day and then make it all back in like another week or whatever. So it's like, you know, this is just a world we were like never versed in before, and now it just became more public because of like we just had a vested interest in it now. So it just I don't think, like, it's just new to the general public, but for him it was probably just like Friday. And so like I don't think like that like bothered him, like that whole scandal. It was just the public reaction to it because we don't know that world. And but also I think can't get lost too is his wife owns part of the team, and he said she's going to be very involved, which is actually really exciting because everybody made a big deal about like J-Lo being the, you know, one of the minority owners. And but you know, now we have a woman, and you know, so, and she seems to be, you know, really want to be involved in the community, and they have their charity, and they've already committed to paying their employees who lost money through the pandemic. So they're already said they're going to invest in the community. So like even that aspect of it, I think is something that's really exciting, because the Wilpons basically had to be bullied into admitting
that,
paying their employees last year. It took a long time for them to do it. And that was one of the first things Cohen came in and did, which I thought spoke a lot about him.
Cool. Yeah.
I since before he owned the team, I've always been pretty wary of him just because of the past insider trading charges on his firm, and I feel like that might happen again just because he's a public figure, and now he's kind of putting himself out there as well, so he's going to come under a bigger microscope. To me, his role in GameStop is misrepresented because he really didn't have anything to do with it until he came and bailed his friend out, pretty much.
Yeah, it was like a mentee of him, like, or like a friend or something like that, wasn't it? Yeah.
It's more symbolic than anything. Like he got into it with Dave Portnoy, who's like somehow pretending to be like a champion of the little people, which like that's a whole separate can of worms I don't want to get into. But it was less like Steve Cohen himself and more just the fact that he was representative of the billionaire class and the GameStop like scandal, whatever you want to call it, GameStop happenings, because I want to use a more neutral word than scandal. GameStop happenings kind of, you know, he was just symbolic of the billionaire class, and that was sort of the little guy rising up against the billionaire class. And so obviously if you're catching like the crossfire of that, you're not going to be looked upon too kindly online. So
you do wonder, like, because I don't think he was the only one who bailed. I admit don't know very much about this because stocks are just a mystery to me as well. But stonks. Oh, I can do the stonks all day. But I wonder if he got so much scrutiny because he had just bought the Mets and was being so out there. I wonder if people wouldn't have even really thought about it. But since we're talking about
definitely a big part of it.
Since we're talking about persons with online personalities, we might as well talk about the elephant in the room, which is, I don't want to waste too much breath on him because God knows too much ink and breath has been wasted on this man already. But Trevor Bauer,
right now with him.
Do what?
There's stuff happening right now.
Yeah.
So currently, this probably is going to air in a few weeks. But yeah, as of right now, he came to LA and started a conversation about illegal immigration. What a moron. But like, yeah, I mean, as a Dodgers fan, like I was very upset, and I wrote about it on Dodger Yard. You know, especially because the Dodgers do make an effort to be like active in the community, and whatever your feelings about Justin Turner after the World Series, he literally kept thousands of people from starving during the pandemic. Like he fed thousands of people. You know, pre-COVID, they did hospital visits all the time. You know, they make an effort to be, you know, moral and upstanding. And then to sign him was especially after he'd already gone after a Dodger fan. And you know, Rachel Luba picked a fight with one of our biggest fan sites. Like what, you know, there's already so much animosity. So when that came, I have to say we were really disappointed. I was very proud of the LA media for like standing up and really trying to make him answer those questions, which he didn't. He deflected. He pledged to be a better person, and we've already seen that's not really happening. What, as a Mets fan, I've read a little bit about what you guys have thought about it, but like what is that like to see a team who had just fired people for being problematic, seeing them go after the Mets, and then also his stupid little Mets leak that was so accidental. Come on. What did that make you feel as fans? How do you think other fans reacted to it?
It was, I mean, like you've said about the Dodgers with the Mets, it was like a slap in the face that the Mets were so interested in him. And like I've said over and over, yeah, despite the immense relief I feel that he's not on my team, like, is there a functional moral difference between the Mets desperately wanting to sign the known harasser of women and actually doing it? Not really. Like, in the end, at the end of the day, we still are carrying ourselves day to day knowing that our team desperately wanted to sign this guy, and in fact may have even detrimentally like not gone after George Springer or not like blown out the budget for George Springer and other free agents they could have signed because they thought they were going to sign Trevor Bauer. So the fact that the Dodgers came in at the last minute and sort of bailed the Mets out of that does not make me feel any better about the actual like grander moral consequence of this whole thing. It sends the message that the Mets, the Dodgers, and baseball as a whole do not care about women. It's as simple as that. They don't care about women. And it's especially with the Mets having this spotlight on them already because of these sexual harassment scandals. Now, I'm not saying that what Bauer did rises to the level of what Porter and Callaway have done. What Porter and Callaway have done is despicable, and that is far beyond online bullying. Yeah, let me just put that out there. But it is all part of the same toxic culture that is perpetuated by teams that enable men like Porter and Callaway. Yeah. And the Mets are clearly one of those teams that enables them, as does a lot of these teams. Like, I don't think any team is innocent in this, really. No. It's just a demonstration of a toxic culture that needs to change. And Bauer has not, we see it literally today, Bauer has not demonstrated any willingness to change his behavior whatsoever, despite what he says. He's still online, literally duking it out with Noah Syndergaard as we speak right now. We are recording this in like mid-February. Oh, it's elevated, yeah. Apparently. I have not read it, but I keep getting texts. My boyfriend is literally in the other room texting me, being like, Allison, you're missing some content.
Oh, no. Oh, well, the last I saw it, because I did take a nap right before this because, I wanted to be bright and bubbly for you guys. But like the last I saw it, he had just picked a fight with, a random fan who slightly, criticized him and called him out, and he can't not fight back. Sorry.
Well, that's always his thing is, I'm just defending myself. But he knows by now that there is an inherent power difference there. This has been explained to him multiple times. Like, it started with the Indians and it just keeps escalating. And so he can't claim like, I didn't know, or I'm just defending myself, because it's not just you defending yourself. It's your legions of fans who then gang up on this one person. And he knows that. And I described it one time as like, he's the high school bully and his fans are the ones that like laugh and point while he's bullying. Like this is what they want him to do. And this is why they snitch tag. This is why they go after people, because they feel like they want to associate with that, or it makes them feel better about themselves. They're right. It's just this juvenile culture. And that's even kind of offensive to juveniles, really, because at least you can explain to them why they're wrong and they'll understand. Like, he just keeps doing it over and over. And he falls for it. Like, every time, like, there's a snitch tag, he falls for it every time. Like, he wants to do this. He wants to be a bully. He can choose not to, but he does it every time. And it's like he lives for the drama. Like, the whole, like, oops, I said Mets first. Like, it's all just, it's like, it's dumb.
It's and with regard to Luba and the whole like website debacle,
Yes.
error, whatever you want to call it, it's all about brand promotion for him in the end, and her as
and
well.
attention.
They are mutually trying to build a brand, and it is all about their personal brand before it's about their team and before it's about baseball, because he's proven this over and over. But that's what the website thing was about. It was about driving traffic to his website. He doesn't actually care about the fans of either team. He cares about himself. And in the aftermath of Fernando Tatis Jr. signing his big contract extension with the Padres, instead of, being like excited that this is good for the game and good for the sport, that an exciting young player is staying with his team for his whole career, Trevor Bauer is out here talking about how Rachel Luba is like, the way that she like operates and the way his contract is structured is superior because of XYZ reasons. Let me break down the math for you, blah, blah, blah. It's all about him. It's all about him all the time. He does not care about anybody else but himself.
Yeah, but Allison, he was so excited to see Noah back out there today.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, I kind of knew the moment he showed up at spring training with a stupid little GoPro rig, whatever, during his walk-in, and it was just
the mask was him throwing the ball over center field too.
Yeah,
and he was wearing a mask with his own. Yeah.
I mean, I think only Kike Hernandez can get away with wearing a mask of his own face for the Dodgers, but
Oh yeah,
for
Kike, it's allowed. He's doing it like ironically. Trevor Bauer's doing it like unironically.
Yeah, no,
Kike's doing a bit.
We're gonna miss him, man. I mean, like, I'm so glad he got paid.
He's fine.
There's not room for all the, like, this is gonna sound like a humble brag, but there really isn't room for all the talent that we had on the Dodgers. And even though, especially with Fartface, we're going way over our luxury tax this year. But I say spend it if you got it, and we got it, so spend it. But losing Kike and Jock was like, it was hard. Like, just
they're fun players.
They're fun. They're good at, like, they're good for morale, especially. That's why, again, I was really happy we kept Justin Turner, because I was genuinely worried about locker room. I can't speak to who is friends with who and who, well, that'll shake out. And I don't necessarily think they should air their dirty laundry like that. But between him and Kershaw and a couple other people, I feel like, and Mookie, like, I don't see Mookie taking shit from Trevor Bauer. Again, I don't know who knows who and all that stuff, but I'm kind of glad to that. Anyway, I'm done talking about that, asshole. Let's talk about what it's like to share a city with the Yankees. What's that like?
Obnoxious.
I mean,
they're all smiling, by the way.
I was like trying to. It's very obnoxious. My best friend is a Yankees fan, so we have like a friendly rivalry, but it's obnoxious. And I try my best not to pay attention to them, because, I mean, the Mets and the Yankees are two very, very different teams, and they have very different histories. You always hear the Yankees say, oh, we have 27 rings. And it's just like, okay, Mets came into existence in 1962, and the Yankees have won 5 World Series since then. So the bulk of their championships came when
there were less teams,
of the 20th century. So, and baseball has definitely evolved since then. And I know New York Mets fans always make fun of Yankee Stadium because of its short porch on the right field. I had to like think about that for a second. Just because I think it's like 315 feet for it to be a home run, which
Something
is
like
really,
that.
a really short distance in terms of home runs. So yeah, it's obnoxious.
Well, and also, I forget who it was who signed here. Curtis Anderson said Mets fans are the best fans, but somebody else said there's no casual Met fans, which is absolutely the truth. Like, when we go in, we go hard. Well, because, like, you have to, because we're not here for the winning. Like, we have to like, there's other reasons why we're Mets fans. So
someone commented that oh my God, I'm a fan because I want us to win. And it's just like, have you seen the history of
when?
During the Bauer stuff, someone was saying like, oh, like, I don't care about the off-field stuff because as long as he can help my team win, like, my fandom is about winning. And we were all like, why are you Mets fan then?
What is happening?
Like, come on, man. Like, seriously, if that's what you care about, there are other teams. Like,
yeah,
let's
you're
be
in the
real.
wrong spot.
But I mean, with the dynamic with the Yankees, I mean, it's like the Yankees, if you talk to a Yankee fan about this, they will say that Mets fans have little brother syndrome. And I mean, like, I hate to take my L's and admit when that's true, but it's absolutely true. I mean, I will cop to that. Like, the Mets have little brother syndrome in a lot of ways, but it was nice this offseason to see a little bit of a role reversal in that regard, because the Yankees fans online could not stop talking about the Mets. And I was like, who's living rent-free in whose head now? Is it you or us? Let's see. Because I was like, ooh, poverty franchise can't even afford DJ LeMahieu. Sounds rough. Like, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I grew up in a town that was predominantly Yankees, like overwhelmingly so, and it was during the like 90s Yankees, the Derek Jeter era Yankees.
Understandable.
And that was,
yeah.
you know, a rough time. And it was just constantly like people bragging on how the Yankees are the better team and how they're the excellent team and all that stuff, 27 rings, but not just like what Kellyanne said is true. Like, how many rings have you won in the last decade? It's the same number that the Mets have won, by the way. It's not just that, but it's also like, I don't know, there's a big cultural difference between the two teams. And I think part of it stems from the underdog like aspect of the Mets, but I think also part of it stems from like, I don't know, the Yankees have a very like stale corporate culture that is just completely the opposite of how I feel
their
like
stupid facial hair rule, like that's just that's
exactly
like, who cares, you know, like who cares?
And the no name
too.
on the back of the uniform, it's very much about like you're not an individual, you're a Yankee. Like that's very
you have
much
to
how
earn
they
your
approach it.
pinstripes.
Earn your pinstripes. Oh, it's the worst slogan ever.
Well, and also like Yankee Stadium is just like a mausoleum to the past. Like there's no fun. There's no like personality. It's just like we have 27 rings. Like, look at how great we were in the past. But that's not the game now. And like, you just walk in and it's cold and it's not welcoming and it's not inviting, and it's just it just goes into their whole like pristine image that this is what it means to be a Yankee, and you have to live up to these ideals to be a Yankee. And I don't know, I mean, obviously we're biased, but it's not fun.
The Yankees are full of dudes who like police bat flipping and stuff
like
that. Like that's like they're anti-fun. And
what'd you say, Kellyanne?
I'm pro-fun.
Are the Galactic Empire and like every other save for a couple are the Rebel Alliance.
Love it. Well, it's funny because like I hear some of the things that you guys are talking about kind of not directly because it's a different dynamic, but it kind of is the same as like the Dodgers and the Angels. Like we have I've said this before on the White Sox, because I talked to the White Sox and we talked a little bit about what it's like to be White Sox and Cubs, you know, in both in Chicago. But like the LA Angels of Anaheim, which just like they're not in LA. They're not even in LA County. Like they're in Orange County. They're in Anaheim. And like, it's funny, like you were talking about like how the stadium is kind of cold. I felt like that a Dodger stadium is a little bit like that, just because it is so old. Like it's, you know, it opened in 62 or in, you know, early 60s. And like the hardest thing one of the hardest things for me about this is that I had a friend who actually worked on the renovation, and it is like, I don't know if you guys know this, but like they spent millions of dollars revamping Dodger Stadium, and like the whole, they call it kind of the front porch, like that whole new area is like completely new. There's restaurants, there's things for the kids. Like there's all these, like, Dodger Stadium is basically kind of brand new, and we haven't been able to get into it all year. And it's funny when you're talking about like the Yankee Stadium, like being about the past and stuff like that. Because, you know, before 2020, we hadn't won anything since 88, which we'll talk about 88 in a little bit. But like, some of the things you were saying about the Yankees kind of felt that way. Like it was a very old, I need to pause. My cat's about to, hey, don't throw up. Don't throw up. No, move. Oh, you cute. So we're back from, I apologize. My cat hurled directly onto my computer cord. So I felt like I needed to take care of that situation. God bless cats. Anyway, while I was taking care of that, we checked in on the beef between Syndergaard and Bauer. And what happened again? Like what was going on?
So the initial tweet that spurred this on was, so obviously, like, you know, Mets fans and like the Mets generally, I think, are still not very pleased with Bauer's conduct during the whole, like, when he was about to sign thing and the teasing the Mets shirt and all that stuff. Yeah. So I think that people are still very not happy about that. And so Noah Syndergaard, like, made a reference to, because in the aftermath of the website thing, Bauer did apologize for that, and he, like, promised to donate to New York-based charities after that. So then Noah Syndergaard, so then that's, you know, that was like right after he signed or whatever. So then there was like the Mets like Twitter account tweeted like a picture, just what, like one of those spring training like screen caps of like Noah Syndergaard and Robert Gsellman like laughing. It's just like, you know, they're sharing a laugh together. Nothing but smiles for spring training. It's the two of them laughing. So Syndergaard like quote tweeted that and said, and then he said, "I'm sorry I chose another team, but I'll donate to your charities." Like a dig at Bauer, meaning that like that's the fake conversation between he and Gsellman that are making them laugh so hard. Right. So that's what started this. So then Bauer quote tweeted him, and I don't have the tweet on hand, but Bauer quote tweeted him and was basically like, "Oh, I'm sure you've never messed up in your life and you're perfect, but I'm glad you're like back from, like, I hope your rehab's going well," or something like that. And they continue to, like, they have been going back and forth on Twitter for like a good hour now. Because like,
and now Bauer's breaking out, like, keep digging, and it was like keep a guy digging.
No, and there's like a digging emoji.
Battle.
Well, Bauer broke out like old Instagram screenshots of like Noah Syndergaard like beefing with fans online and being like, "Why don't you treat fans better?" And it's kind of like pot kettle.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I have to say, what I'm looking at right now is a lot of Dodger fans who are like, "Get him, Noah." They're like kind of quiet.
Well, and also what's become obvious to me is Bauer does not have the respect of his peers. No. Acuna was going after him on Twitter last season. Now Noah. So, and then I think even in Cleveland, they said the clubhouse was like him and everybody else.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think, you know, even from a player's standpoint, like they're kind of tired of him too, and what he's.
What did you say? Doing. What were you saying, Kellyanne?
Oh, DeGrom had his press conference earlier today, and he obviously got a couple questions about Bauer, and he had to like really stop himself from rolling his eyes. He's like looking, and then you could see it in his face that he was just like, no.
DeGrom is like too much of a gentleman and a professional to ever, like, he's not going to get into it online the way that Syndergaard is, like, ever. But he kind of, I mean, because, like, I don't know, if I'm Jacob DeGrom, I'm going to get a little annoyed that at my press conference at spring training, I'm like the best pitcher in baseball, and I'm getting asked about Trevor Bauer for some reason. So, of course, like, someone asked him, like, "Oh, does it annoy you? Like, does it annoy you that Trevor Bauer got this like big contract?" And DeGrom was like, "He waited till free agency. I signed an extension. Like, that's how this works. I'm very happy with the contract I signed." Like,
I thought his best answer too was, "I didn't really pay attention, to be honest."
He was like,
"I just like no, don't care."
It was very like, why should I give a single F about Trevor Bauer?
They specifically asked him, "Did you get in touch with Bauer? Did you try to recruit?" And he goes, "No, I didn't pay attention."
No, I don't care. Like,
Oh, that's funny.
Which
I
is
well,
the best.
I have a ton of respect for DeGrom. He's on my fantasy team, so him and Jeff McNeil, love him.
Oh, nice.
So
Those
he
are two
hopefully,
good fantasy players to have.
Yeah. Well, Jeff is I tend to go after utility guys, and Jeff seems to kind of do that because I like having multiple spots to plug people in, and yeah. Him and Keeks, I hope I'm gonna keep. I might shake up my bullpen. It's a little rusty. But anyway, yeah, so hooray. Of course, Trevor Bauer finds a way to make him talk about us even more. What a thrill. So let's talk about a different Mets player that had kind of maybe would have been like a similar person had Twitter been around back in there, but like Bobby Bonilla, like he was kind of he was kind of controversial, right? Like I don't have a good sense of him as a player because I was all about the Braves during that time. But like what's going on there? Like how do you as Mets fans feel about that situation? About him getting $1 million every July 1st until 2035, right? Like is there anything
Something
to
like
feel
that.
other than just like Will Ponds? Like,
I think it's gotten overblown because like the Nationals are going to be paying Max Scherzer until like he's 75 or like something ridiculous. So,
Yeah.
and I think the Red Sox are still paying Manny Ramirez. Like this is a thing teams do, but I think it's just something to like clown the Mets on because Bobby Bonilla was not good. So it's like, you're stuck with him. Like the Islanders, like it's every sport. The Islanders are still playing Rick DiPietro and
Yeah.
like for another like 20 years, and he's like out of like barely played and is now an analyst. Like it's just something. It's just what businesses do, or like what sports teams do to give them payroll flexibility. That word, payroll flexibility.
Right.
So it's something that just like I guess because he was so bad, and that like the media just was able to like latch onto that and like point
Yeah.
and laugh at the Mets, but it's just
People
it's
do love
ridiculous.
alliterations too, so
Yeah.
I mean, question known about that is going to what Linda said about payroll flexibility. It enabled the Mets to sign Mike Hampton, who was then traded and opened up a draft spot. And that draft spot, of course, went to David Wright. So that kind of, I think, worked out in our favor. That's a lesser known piece of that contract. So, and again, like Linda said, there are a lot of teams that have deferrals. That it's just easy to pick on the Mets and Bobby Bonilla just because LOL Mets. It falls into that narrative.
yeah.
So
It kind of just became emblematic of the lol Mets meme, and so I mean, like I take it in stride. I don't care. People use it to clown on the Mets, and it's just like fine. Like find a more original joke, I guess.
Well, somebody on Amazing Avenue said Cohen should just buy him out just to like end the narrative at this
Oh
point.
my
Like,
God,
just
that'd
write
be
him a
great.
blank check and be like, good luck,
Yeah.
God bless, have a nice life, just so we don't have to hear about it every July 1st. Like he has the money to do it, just do it.
Just get it out. Yeah, I get that. Well, speaking of other trades, how did you guys feel about the Justin Turner trade at the time? Like, did it even really? Is just like was that a big deal or?
I'm going through my notes here.
No, I mean, so no. The short answer is no, but I remember feeling at the time like not particularly caring, but it was less because obviously when Turner was on the Mets, anyone who says that they predicted that Turner would become a superstar is lying. Like that, they're lying to you. No one knew that he was going to become what he became on the Dodgers. It's not the same as like a Daniel Murphy situation where like he kind of showed hints of that toward the end of his Mets career, and then the Mets like let him go and then he became like much better, but he was already showing that when he was on the Mets. That was not the situation with Turner. Turner was a utility infielder who hit like 260 or whatever, a one WAR player, basically, more or less. But it was less about that and more about like the principle of the fact that the Mets wouldn't pay this useful player like $1 million. Like they basically let him go over like $1 million. So it was more like them being cheap again. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, I knew he was going to be a superstar and they missed out on that opportunity. It was like they cheaped out and he was like not a superstar, but a useful player for them. And the Mets wouldn't pay him $1 million. And then they kind of deserved what was coming to them then. So that's more what I felt about it. It's not like some like hindsight's 2020. It's not some.
It wasn't a Mookie
devastating
Betts
blow.
trade or something like that.
No, it wasn't a Mookie Betts trade exactly, but it was just more that like the Mets lost out on him over so little money that is frustrating.
Well, and there's no real like reason to think Turner would have become Turner on the Mets, because they have had a huge issue developing players. They had to, that was one of Sandy's big things, is he wanted to revamp the minors. So who knows if he ever would have even flourished with the team. And it seemed like the Wilpons had it out for Turner. Like they didn't like they thought he was a bad influence on Ike Davis. So it seemed like the whole dynamic wasn't there for him to succeed.
Yeah. just like knowing who Turner is like to the Dodgers, like the fact that he would be a bad influence on someone is kind of funny. Like I almost want to see what his bad influence looks like. Well, I mean, I guess I kind of did.
Well, it doesn't take much for the Wilpons. It does not take much.
The Wilpons are a poor judge of character. Let us just say they have a history.
I mean, Bernie Madoff and
yeah, they have a long history with their players of like kind of letting the door hit them on the way out, and Turner was no exception to that. Like they did it with guys who were already good on the Mets, like Carlos Beltran,
Pedro Martinez,
and it was very much their MO to like whenever they let players walk due to free agency or traded them, or just they like left the team or they weren't on the team anymore for whatever reason. It was very much their MO to like slam the door on them on the way out and be like, he wasn't good anyway because of XYZ reason. And with Turner, it was like they made up some stupid stuff about how he used to like, because Turner used to like pie, like do the shaving cream pies in the like during walk-offs or whatever, and like the Wilpons were like his antics, and I was like having fun. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I'm interested to see the Mets under less strict, let their hair down a little bit, that sort of thing.
I think
I would like to see that too.
They're more online. I think we're seeing that already, and the group of guys are really getting along. It seems thus far.
Well, we saw that in 2019 too, with them like ripping the shirts off and stuff. Like they have a fun bunch of guys, and if you just let them like go, I feel like they're just gonna take off with it. And every single person they've brought in has immediately taken to Twitter. Like Jim McCann hadn't tweeted in years, and now all of a sudden he's like tweeting back and forth with Stroman and like Syndergaard and. So it's like it seems like they're excited to be here, and which is, a culture change, because it was usually like guys we were like the retirement home for guys who wanted to like resurrect their careers, like Jose Bautista, Joey Bats, or Adrian Gonzalez. It's like, well, I'm going to give it one last go with the Mets and see if I can do it. So it's a nice change to like these other like fun guys, like guys who still have career ahead of them, like want to be here. And
I feel like with every era of Mets success, there's been a guy who's made them cool again.
Yes.
And like so like during the like 99 2000 era Mets, that was Mike Piazza. He was very much the guy that like made the Mets an exciting team again. And during the 2015 run, it was yes. And during the 2015 run, it was Yoenis Cespedes. Like Yoenis Cespedes like burst on the scene. He had swag, like he made the Mets cool again. And now I feel like that player, hopefully, I hope is Francisco Lindor. I hope that Francisco Lindor will become that player for the Mets and make the Mets like a cool team and like a fun place to be where like other players want to come here.
I have one more question about the past, then we are going to start talking about more modern players. How much do you guys currently hate Chase Utley?
Oh,
a lot.
I've compared him to Voldemort. Like I call him he who must not be named.
He's like public enemy number one for Mets fans.
Utley, you Butley.
Yeah,
Utley.
That girl is our hero.
Yeah.
That girl is a national treasure.
God, it's true.
True.
Oh, that's pretty good. I mean, you know, I have fun feeling. I think it was a dirty slide. I'm not gonna try and walk that back, but I gotta say I actually do respect Syndergaard for throwing behind him. Like, you know, sometimes you gotta do a little. As a Dodger fan in 2020, I can't say anything about throwing at players. So I'm not gonna. But I do have to, you know, appreciate that he came back that game with a home run and a grand slam, just because it's such a fun narrative. I know it's not as much a fun narrative for you guys, but it's a fun thing.
Out of that,
What?
so we had the ass in the jackpot moment come out of that. So with the umpires, so, and that's been a pretty iconic moment for us.
Was that Jeff?
The ass in the jackpot audio is a gift.
It is.
Yes.
Syndergaard just tweeted it not too long ago. I think he tweeted it at McCann not too long ago. So, like, we're still getting life out of that.
Okay, so that's where we're going to leave it for now. However, there is so much more to come, both from these women and from Baseball Neighborhood. So this is that usual reminder to like, subscribe, click, share, you know the drill. You know what podcasts are. On Twitter, we're at NeighborBall. By the way, if you want to read more from me, go to dodgeryard.com. That's where all of my ramblings and writings are, some of which you just might like. Also check out right now, we're having an art contest celebrating our wonderful Dodgers pitcher, Clayton Kershaw. It's his birthday this month, so we're going to put something together extra special for him. If the baseball gods are willing and the COVID numbers don't rise, we'll see you out there soon. Have a good one. This Baseball Neighborhood podcast is a production of Dodger Yard.